Hello and welcome back to another video. So as promised, this is the second part of my Dreamcast collection, and it's going to be all about the homebrew titles and import games that I own. So I've had a quick look through and there's around about 40 games, so probably wise to grab your beverage of choice, because I think it's going to be quite a long-winded one. So I'm going to start off with the homebrew titles. I'm not going to show you the insides of every game, but this particular developer I will do, because I think it's worth seeing. So it's NG Dev Team, and it's Gunlord, which is pretty much the game that I got the Dreamcast for. Really wanted to get this for the AES, but bottled out at the £350 price tag. And it's an absolutely fantastic Turrican-esque title, and highly enjoyable. I've never actually got past level 4, I don't think, but I still really rate it. And it's a great experience on the Dreamcast. It's certainly worth picking up. I believe there was another reissue after this one in like a slimline jewel case, so perhaps I have to get them on eBay at this point. No idea on the cost. Next up is Fast Striker. I really have grown to love this game. It's a vertically scrolling shooter, but your TV is still in Yoko mode to display it, so it's still the right way up. So as you can see inside, absolutely gorgeous artwork, and thoroughly recommend that as well. One of my favourites. So this is the first game that NG Dev Team developed, and it's Last Hope. This is the second revision, Pink Bullets. It's an R-Type-esque shooter. It's got a reputation for being extremely tough. This is the Pink Bullets version, which is supposed to be slightly easier because the bullets are easy to pick up, but it's still a rock hard game. But it's another title I spent quite a bit of time with, and I've enjoyed it. And I really wanted to get all the NG Dev Team games, so it was an essential purchase for me. And last but not least, for the NG Dev Team, it's Neo XYX, which I always pronounce wrong. Now this is actually a vertically scrolling shooter that requires you to turn your television on its side to play it in all its glory, because it's got a tape mode, and this is a go-to game for me. I spent so much time. It's probably one of the only games that I've really played hardcore to get a high score, and in some ways it's ruined the experience, but it's still such a great game. And as far as homebrew titles go, I don't think I've played a vertically scrolling shooter that's as good as this that's been released this century. Well, certainly in the last 10 years, because the next game is arguably better, and it was released in the last 20 years, and it's Under Defeat. Now this isn't actually a homebrew title. This is the last game to be released on the Dreamcast. Well, certainly it was at one point, and this is really good. Almost hyper-realistic graphics, and very enjoyable. Another go-to game for me when I got the Tate setup on the go. This is one I always stick on, and always a pleasure to play. So I think, talking on prices, I can't remember the NG Dev Team stuff, because I literally got it when it first come out. I think at the time they were probably about £25 each, but I think this game, it may have cost me about £40, but well worth it. Definitely worth the price of admission. So 2 more homebrew titles, and first up is Rush Rally Racing. This is a Micro Machines-esque racing game that is actually 4-player. Highly enjoyable. Don't know why I'm showing you the inside of this, it's pretty boring. But there's a reissue of this, I believe it's called Rush Rally Revolution. I'm not sure what the changes are, but I would recommend this if you could pick this up for the right price. I got this when it first came out, and it wasn't expensive when it first came out. I think it was about £15, something like that. But I've had quite a lot of fun playing this. I think it's a good racer. And the last homebrew title is Wind and Water Puzzle Battles. So this is a really interesting game. I can't remember. I think it'd be called, was it called Bejeweled? Something like that. It's very similar to that kind of gameplay, where you rotate the pieces around to get them to join up, but it's one of those puzzle games that you stick on for 5 minutes and the next thing you know you've been playing it for 2 hours. And it's got a really cool storyline. It's very well thought out and very much a labour of love. I can't remember how much I paid for that. Again, it wasn't very expensive when it came out. I think it was around about probably £15. So moving on to the American games. Now the reason I've got an American Dreamcast collection is because once I bought a bundle of American Dreamcast games with the Dreamcast link lead. And I bought it because I wanted the link lead, and then years later I actually happened to get my hands on an American Dreamcast, which was pretty handy because American games seem to be the ones you struggle the most with to get to run right via the CDX kind of situation. So there's quite a stack here. First up is Speed Devil. This has only got I believe that might be the instruction manual and the disc, but I think I got this really cheap on eBay, probably like £3 or something like that. It's a pretty average arcade-esque racing game, but for the price of admission, I had quite a bit of fun with it, and I've heard there's an online version of this that people are still playing today, so it wouldn't be in the top 10 racing games, that's for sure, but still cool to have in the collection, I guess. Next up, an absolute classic, Virtual Tennis, say no more. At the time and for many years after, this was the most realistic tennis series that you could get, and it still plays really well today. 4-player, and of course the Dreamcast came with the 4 ports on the console, which just made it so easy. If you had a friend who had a Dreamcast, they could bring their 2 controllers and you were all sorted. So next is Dead or Alive 2. Really, really beautiful fighting game. Graphics are sublime on this. Even today it looks absolutely gorgeous, and you can't really go wrong with the Dead or Alive series, although I feel like number 2 was perhaps the pinnacle of it. So next we have Armada, and when I got into the Dreamcast, which was probably only about 5 years ago, we're looking at games that were sort of hidden gems, and this one kept coming up. Again, it's a 4-player game, it's a space exploration title. I've played it a fair amount, but I feel like there's probably hours and hours and hours, and if I had this game when it first came out, the kind of people I were friends with, I could imagine this would have got a hell of a lot of play time. But yeah, an interesting title, worth picking up if you can find it for the right price. Next we have a first-person shooter, Unreal Tournament. And for some reason, even though the Dreamcast doesn't have the twin analog sticks, I still find the first-person shooters to be highly enjoyable. And this is exactly that. Really cool set of weapons. I'm sure most people have played the Unreal games, but worth picking up on the Dreamcast, I think. So next we have Jet Grind Radio. I've actually got the European version as well of this. One of the best games on the Dreamcast, possibly top 10. Yeah, it's got its flaws, but everything else about it, the graphics, the sound, the variation, it's just such an iconic game. You really do need to play this. If you've never played it, you've definitely got to. So next we have F355 Ferrari Challenge. I actually have the American and the Japanese version of this because this is one of the few link-up games. I think the other one is... I'm going to forget the name of the game now. It's the mech one where you fight each other. No, the name evades me, but yeah, this is a really cool game from Yu Suzuki, and I find it incredibly difficult actually. I've never won a race in it, but it is a really good racing game, especially if you sink some time into it, so highly recommended. Here's another game that sort of kept coming up on lists, Charge and Blast, and I really like this. This is right up my street. It's got a strange control mechanic, sort of 3 lanes you can move between, and then you can move your cursor and fire at the oncoming aliens. There's, nods to Godzilla and all kinds of things like that, and this is such a cool game, especially with two people playing it. I really like it. It takes a little bit of getting used to the controls, but I would definitely recommend it, and it's a real classic arcade experience. So here we have Sega Marine Fishing. So I really love Sega Bass Fishing. I think Sega Marine Fishing is a good evolution of that. There's a whole variety of different fish to catch, but it's pretty much the same sort of over-the-top arcade gameplay that the original Sega Bass had, and that's what makes it so good. So yeah, that to me is an essential title on Dreamcast. Here we have a sealed game. Yes, it's Virtual Tennis 2, or Tennis 2K2 as it's called in America. so I've not unsealed it because I sort of I've just been playing virtual tennis when I need to play a tennis game, but I probably should at some point. But it's a great game. I have played the second game, that one, on the PlayStation 2 for a considerable amount of hours, and it's just as good as the first, if not better. So next up we have Metropolitan Street Racer, MSR, and this is a really cool game from Bizarre Creations, who later went on to do Project Gotham Racing, and it's basically very similar to that. It's all about driving with style, getting your kudos points, drifting around, whilst also, you know, completing the stages in good time. And yeah, it's a very cool game. It uses the Dreamcast clock to set the time of day, because I think it's like New York, Paris and London. Could be incorrect there, but you know, so the time of day changes depending on when you're playing. And of course you can work that to your advantage, because driving at night's a bit more difficult than in the day. So here we have Coaster Works, Build the Ride of Your Life. Now, I could not get this game to run anything until I bought an American Dreamcast. Then I played about 3 stages of it, which probably took me about an hour, and I just couldn't do the 4th stage, so I never went back to it. It's interesting, it's quirky, well, you have to design a roller coaster, make it work, get it approved, and move on to the next stage. So, yeah, it's a fun way to waste some time. I'm not going to say it's essential, but I do like strange games, so that sort of ticks that box, I guess. So next up we have Demolition Racer No Exit. I adore this game, and this is such a weird game because you can never get it to work. Don't matter what Dreamcast you put it on, it just doesn't seem to work. But when it does, you stick at it, and I think it doesn't like RGB SCART, to be honest, because when I plugged my American Dreamcast in via S-Video, it does seem to work, but this is cracking. It's a game in the Destruction Derby series, and I wouldn't say it was as good or as pivotal as the original games on the PlayStation, but it is a hell of a lot of fun, and I dread to think how many hours I've played this for. I would say in excess of 30. I've pretty much completed it, unlocked what you can, and it's just fun. It's a bit more arcadey than the Demolition Derby games on the PlayStation, but as I say, it's fun, and I think that's the one big thing about the Dreamcast, is a lot of the games are just fun, arcade, pure experiences. You know, no frills, but the graphics, the sound, it's all that sort of late 90s, early 2000s sort of quality that you grow to love. And of course, that was kind of the end of the arcade era, really. So next we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Adored these games on the PlayStation, adored them up until the point that somebody else showed me them playing it, and they scored more points sliding round, doing the grind, in about 1 minute than I'd scored in about 30 hours of gameplay. So it was then I realised it wasn't very good, but I still really like Tony Hawk's, and well, you know, completing all the goals to get through the levels, it's still a lot of fun. I don't know if I prefer playing this on the PlayStation because of the controller, but I was pretty glad to actually get this, because this is the only Tony Hawk's game I've got in my collection. So it's nice to go back to that. Soundtrack's always great. And yeah, who doesn't love Tony Hawk's? So here we have another game that's sealed, Skies of Arcadia. The sky's the limit. Now this game's got a hell of a reputation, but I've got to admit, I don't really think it's for me. So I just sort of bought it on a whim when it was sealed, and I don't know. I'm either going to get really bored one day, like when the apocalypse starts and all there is left to do is play Skies of Arcadia, or I'm going to sell it. But yeah, Skies of Arcadia. A lot of people love that game, although I'm not a big RPG fan. The only time I've enjoyed an RPG is when I followed a guide. So I think that says a lot about my mentality when it comes to the role-playing games. So Test Drive Le Mans 24-hour. This is absolutely stunning. Plays beautifully with wheel, whole host of different vehicles, and it's actually got a 24-hour mode. Mental, right? And if you look on YouTube, there are people who have done the 24-hour mode. They've live streamed it on the Dreamcast. So I don't know if it's something I'd like to do, but it's a game that I've spent a fair amount of time with, and even just playing through the campaign, it's brilliant. Really is worth checking out, and that is, without a doubt, in top 5 Dreamcast racing games. Maybe top 3. Maybe top 3. So another first-person shooter. I love this. Quake 3 Arena. Absolutely love this. I actually love this on the PS2 as well. I don't know, there's just something about Quake 3. I just like the weapons, the levels, the soundtrack, the atmosphere. I just think it's the perfect arena-based first-person shooter. And I always come back to playing some Dreamcast. I think it looks better on Dreamcast than PlayStation 2, but it's a slick game. It's just a shame I'm terrible at it and I don't have a mouse and keyboard. So here we have Ioan Aces. Now it's a flight sim, not a flight sim, it's a flight game. It's not really simulational. It's somewhere in between simulation and arcade, I guess. World War II aerial combat. I spent a bit of time playing this, like pretty much every single plane game I've ever played, from Ace Combat to, I don't know, Ioan Aces. I generally get to about the third or fourth level and I just can't get any further. Secret Weapons of Normandy, that's a game I've had this trouble with recently. Yeah, I usually get to about the fourth level and I can't get past it. Same's happened here. But I quite liked it because I haven't got any aerial combat games in the World War II era on the Dreamcast. So, and I think this was about £4 on eBay. So, yeah, I wouldn't wholeheartedly recommend it unless you just like mad on Dreamcast, which I seem to have gone crazy on, but it was just because I got an American console, so I just went through this phase of picking up any American games I could find. And here's another example of that, and it's Dave Myra BMX. And this is actually quite good, but it has some performance issues. I think I got to about the 5th stage, and all of a sudden I was getting loads of slowdown and things. So, but the soundtrack on this, brilliant, love it. And much like Tony Hawk, there's just something appealing to me in playing these kind of games, you know, where they have horrific accidents or you pull off some. It just, I don't know, it absorbs me, and I just, with the music as well, I just get into it, and I've always liked them kind of games. So now we're moving on to the Japanese stuff. Not long to go now. Let me get a quick drink. 17 minutes. I should have mentioned I've got Herzog Zwei playing in the background, and the reason I've not got a Dreamcast playing is because the amount of noise they make while in operation. So I thought it best not to. So first up, Castle Shimigami 2. Now, I actually picked this game up in this most bizarre bundle because it included this game and the single disc version of this game and a load of other tosh, and I think it cost about, I don't know, £38. And I think I sold the single disc version to Horatio Van Basten for a reasonable amount, I must add. But yeah, I love this. Another vertically scrolling shooter, can play it in tape mode, little bit Japanese anime-ish, completely wild cast of characters. I think there's probably 7 or 8 different people to choose from, a whole host of different attributes and weapons between them. It's got a lot of longevity, and this one comes with the telephone card, which obviously I've still kept sealed because it also comes with the soundtrack and this spiffy little cardboard case. But to be honest, the soundtrack isn't right up my street, but I don't know. It's still a good game. I would recommend picking this up, but I think it goes for stupid money now. But definitely try and check it out. I think there's a version on PlayStation 2. I'm sure there is. But yeah, it's a cool game. Worth playing. So next we have Sega Rally 2. Now the reason I've got the Japanese version of this is because apparently this plays at 60 frames per second, although you do encounter some slowdown, whereas the PAL and American versions were locked to 30. So yeah, it's a cool game. I liked it in the arcades. I found it hard in the arcades, and I really like it here. And here it's got what they call the 10-year mode as well, which is substantially easier. There's a lot of variation on the track, so it seems like there's, you know, quite an in-depth campaign mode, and that's where I spent most of the time, because the arcade mode is still rock hard. You get 3 or 4 stages in, and you just, I don't know how you're supposed to do it, because I've driven like a maniac. But yeah, if you like Sega Rally on the Saturn, you'll like Sega Rally 2 on the Dreamcast. So it's Ferrari 355 Challenge again. It's the Japanese version, so I've already discussed that. House of the Dead 2. Pivotal light gun shooter. The best on the Dreamcast, no doubt about it. Great with 2 players. And yeah, pretty much an essential title on the Dreamcast, especially if you've got CRT. Probably a bit less so if you're just going to be playing on a high definition display and you have to use your controller, but it's zombie slaying at its very best. And it's just a shame that the light guns on the Dreamcast, you know, I think this would really play better with like a shotgun or just a gun that wasn't as bulky as the Dreamcast guns. But that's a different subject altogether. But definitely worth picking up. Crazy Taxi 2. I really like the original, and the sequel is just as good, really. Got the Japanese version because it was a hell of a lot cheaper. I think it was about £8 at the time, and it's just more Crazy Taxi, so it's really cool. Arguably, I think I remember this performing a bit better than the original one, but if you like the original, this is pretty much essential. So here's another game I got because the Japanese version was so much cheaper. It's Power Stone 2. Main difference from the first one is the inclusion of a 4-player mode. Hell of a lot of fun, but really confusing. There's so much going on. If you've had a few drinks, this is almost impossible to keep track of, but it's totally mental. I mean, it's one of them games where you're just like, did you see that? I can't believe that's happened. Whoa, how'd you get that? It's just like, people are turned to robots and all sorts, and there's screens moving all over the place, and submarines are landing, and it's, yeah, really cool game, really well done, and a great series, the Power Stone series. The original's just as good, really. So next up, Zombie Revenge. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Well, it's not actually side-scrolling because it's kind of 3D, but yeah, it's okay. I got so far and then I couldn't get much further, as with a lot of games, but yeah, at the time, I think I got this for a really reasonable price, and yeah, I just struggling to remember actually. I do think you pick up some kind of weapons as well, so that's. I think the thing about that was it was a bit awkward, the aiming. It was a bit like, you know, I don't know, a bit like Grand Theft Auto 3 or something. But yeah, it was okay. Not high on my list of games to recommend, I guess. Super Runabout. I actually had the European version of this, and this is from the developers of Burnout, Climax. And if anyone remembered a game called Felony 1147 on the PlayStation, it's a little bit like a mix between that and Burnout, but it's quite cool. Sort of car-related missions, really wacky storyline. The physics are a bit janky, but certainly a game to experience. I enjoyed my time with it, and well, I actually got a few. I think I've got a video on this, so I don't know. If I was high tech, I would like link to videos and stuff, but chances are none of that's going to happen. But check it out. Search on the channel. So next up, 18 Wheeler. I remember seeing this in the arcades with a massive steering wheel, and yeah, this is a cool game. I really do like this. The time limits are extremely tight, but they are doable, and I have got considerably far in this game. And I like the host of wacky characters, and of course the in-truck view with the things dangling the window and all the rest of it. Yeah, I recommend that. I think that's worth getting on the Dreamcast. I want to give that in the top 10 of driving games. And here we have a game, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes. I think Gus Newton gave me this, actually. Really cool, solid 2D, 240p one-on-one fighting game for the Dreamcast. And this is great. Absolutely brilliant. Mega Man's in it, a whole host of the X-Men. Really do rate this game. And it looks gorgeous, even today. It looks absolutely stunning. So, we have probably one of my favourite games on the Dreamcast, Zero Gunner 2. And it was a fair few years ago now. This came up on eBay for £40. I bought it straight away, obviously. And I thought, something's going to go wrong here. It's going to be like a fake or something like that. But it was completely legit. The only thing that was wrong with it was the case was really scratched up. So swapped it for a brand new one. And this is brilliant. Another vertically scrolling shooter that plays with your television in full screen, in the correct orientation there. And this is graphically absolutely gorgeous. It's from Psychio, who've made many a classic shooter, including the Striker series. And yeah, I thoroughly recommend checking this out. I believe it's on the Nintendo Switch, but it's a cracking game. Even more fun with the 2 people, and under the feet you could just move your helicopter like that, but in this game you can move your helicopter the full 360, which really opens up the gameplay. And as I say, graphically, sonically, this is superb. This is in a top 5 Dreamcast games, but probably top 3 for me. And last but not least, I believe this was from Gus Newton as well. It's Capcom versus SNK Millennium Fight 2000, and this is gorgeous. This is sort of a mix, almost like a mix between Street Fighter and King of the Fighter in terms of the way it looks. Obviously, it's Capcom versus SNK, and that's why. But yeah, really like this, and it's got that King of the Fighter thing where you see the scene and then you sort of zoom into it, and the scene becomes the fight. I guess you know what I mean if you've played one of those kind of games. But yeah, another gorgeous fighting game from Capcom, and thoroughly recommended. Even though I'm not a big fan of these sort of games, this one is outstanding. So that's it. Managed to get through it all. 25 minutes. So I thank you if you got to the end of that. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I shall no doubt catch you soon. Take care.